Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving deep into the world of visa availability today. Specifically, we're looking really closely at the shift between two key documents: the visa bulletins for October 2025 and November 2025.
That's right. And these aren't just, lists of dates. For anyone waiting for an immigrant visa or maybe adjusting status here in the US, these bulletins are, well, they're everything. They tell you where you stand.
It's like checking the stock market for your future almost.
Exactly. And the October bulletin is crucial because it kicks off the new fiscal year 2026, or FY 2026. It sets the baseline. Then the November bulletin gives us that first real glimpse into how things are actually moving, or maybe not moving, early in the cycle.
So our mission today basically is to put these two blueprints, October and November 25, side by side. We want to pinpoint the critical movements, any advancements, or maybe just see where things stayed exactly the same using only the data in these bulletins.
And to do that properly, we really need to understand the two main charts in each bulletin. It can be a bit confusing. First, you've got the final action dates. That's chart A. This is the date when essentially a visa can actually be issued or your adjustment of status can be approved. Think of it as the green light date.
Okay, final action, the green light. Got it.
Then there's chart B, the dates for filing applications. This date is usually earlier, sometimes much earlier. It tells certain applicants when they can go ahead and submit their paperwork, like to the National Visa Center or NVC. Get everything ready.
So filing date is like getting in the queue early.
Exactly. But here's the absolutely critical part, and something everyone listening needs to track every single month.
Okay.
It's USCIS, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, that decides which chart people applying for adjustment of status inside the U.S. should use each month.
So it's not always the filing date chart, even if it looks more hopeful.
Nope, not at all. USCIS posts an update on their website. You absolutely have to check www.usciss.gov Visa Bulletin info. They'll say, this month, use the final action dates chart, or this month you can use the dates for filing chart.
And that decision can change month to month.
It can, and it does. It depends on how many visas they think they'll have available versus how many people are ready to file. So, 1 month you might be able to file early based on chart B. The next month, maybe not. It's vital information.
Okay, that's a huge takeaway right there. Always check the USCIS page.
Absolutely essential.
All right, before we dig into the date changes, let's set the stage for this fiscal year, FY 2026. The overall quotas, those haven't changed between October and November, right?
Correct. The annual limits are consistent in both bulletins. For family-sponsored preferences, the worldwide limit is 226,000. And for employment-based preferences, the floor, the minimum, is 140,000. It can sometimes be higher if there are unused family visas from the previous year, but 140,000 is the baseline.
And the countries that always get special attention because of high demand, those are the same too.
Yep. Still the same 4 designated as oversubscribed, meaning they face specific per-country limits that often lead to longer waits. That's China mainland, born, India, Mexico, and the Philippines.
Okay, that context is important.
Yeah.
The big picture limits and the high demand countries.
Right, that's the framework we're working within.
Okay, let's dive into the family-sponsored side first. This covers, spouses, kids, siblings of U.S. citizens, or permanent residents. We're looking for movement between the October and November 2025 bulletins, specifically the final action dates first, Chart A, where people actually get the visa.
All right, so looking at Chart A for family-sponsored, the overall theme, I'd say, is pretty limited movement. Some categories advanced a bit, others not at all.
Let's start at the top, F1. That's unmarried sons and daughters of U.S. citizens. What happened there?
F1, 0 change. Absolutely static between October and November. For all chargeability areas, that means everyone except those 4 specific countries. And for China, India, and Mexico, the date remains parked at November 8th, 2016.
2016, wow.
Yeah. And for the Philippines, it's even further back, April 8, 2001. No movement whatsoever.
So almost a decade wait for most, and no forward progress at the very start of the fiscal year. That really shows the backlog depth, doesn't it?
It really does. Even with that fresh batch of 226,000 family visas becoming available in October, the sheer number of people already waiting with priority dates before November 2016 means the line just didn't move forward yet for this group.
Okay. What about F2A? Spouses and minor children of permanent residents? That one's usually faster.
It is, relatively speaking, and here too we saw stability across the board. No change from October to November. Most countries, including China and India, are holding at February 4, 2024, so a much shorter wait compared to F1.
But Mexico's different, right?
Always. Mexico and F2A is way behind the others, stuck at November 22, 2005.
But didn't the bulletins mention something specific about Mexico F2A numbers? An exemption?
Yes, good point. Both bulletins include a note specifically reminding us that most of the F2A visa numbers given to Mexico are actually exempt from the usual per-country limit.
So even though the day looks far back, they're actually getting a special allocation.
Essentially, yes. It's a policy choice to help process these immediate relatives of green card holders from Mexico a bit faster than they otherwise could, given the huge demand from Mexico across all categories. It helps keep that specific line moving, relatively speaking.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, F2B. This is unmarried sons and daughters, but the ones who are 21 or older of permanent residence. Do we see anything happen here?
We did. Finally, some movement on the final action chart. It's small, but it's there. For China mainland-born, India, and Mexico specifically, the final action date nudged forward. It went from November 22, 2016 in the October Bulletin to December 1st, 2016 in the November Bulletin.
So let's see, November 22nd to December 1st. That's what, 9 days?
Exactly 9 days.
9 days? I mean, is that really significant?
You know, in these heavily backlogged categories, any forward movement is significant. 9 days might not sound like much, but it tells us that they've started allocating the new FY 2026 visa numbers to this category. It confirms the queue is moving, even if it's incredibly slow. It's a positive sign, however small.
Okay, fair enough. A sign of life, at least. What about F4? Brothers and sisters of adult U.S. citizens. Often the longest waits here.
Right. And F4 actually saw the most movement on the final action chart between these 2 months. For all chargeability areas, so everyone except China, India, Mexico, Philippines, the date advanced from April 15th, 2001 in October to May 4th, 2001 in November.
April 15th to May 1st. Okay, that's 16 days.
16 days, correct. A clear jump.
And Mexico, do they get the same treatment?
They did, interestingly. Mexico's F4 final action date also advanced by 16 days. It went from June 15, 2001 in October to July 1st, 2001 in November.
So a consistent 16-day push for F4, both for the general pool and for Mexico. Any idea why that specific amount?
It's just a deliberate decision. Maybe they identified a specific block of available numbers, or perhaps there was an internal target to clear cases with those specific priority dates right at the start of the fiscal year. It's a more noticeable push than the 9 days in FTB. Hashtag tag 1.2 dates for filing application movements. 4.B comparison.
All right, so that was Chart A, final action dates showing pretty limited careful movement overall. Now let's switch gears to Chart B, the dates for filing. This is where people can submit paperwork early, right?
Exactly. And if Chart A showed cautious steps, Chart B, well, it showed some pretty big leaps forward. This suggests the National Visa Center is gearing up for a lot more processing down the line.
Okay, interesting. Let's start with F2A again. What happened with the F2A filing dates?
This was dramatic. For all chargeability areas, the filing date jumped from October 8, 2006 in the October Bulletin all the way to March 1, 2007 in the November Bulletin.
October 06 to March 07. Hold on. That's almost 5 months, a 5-month jump in the filing date.
Nearly 5 months, yes. It's a really significant advance.
Wow. What does that signal? Why such a big jump for filing?
It's basically the NVC saying, we expect visa numbers to become available for these people much later in the fiscal year, probably, but we need to get their paperwork processed now. They're clearing the decks, getting all the documents reviewed, so when the final action date eventually catches up, they can approve the cases quickly and not waste any visa numbers.
So it's like they're front-loading the administrative work.
Precisely. They're anticipating future visa availability and preparing for it aggressively.
Did the backlogged countries in F2A see any filing date movement? China, India, Philippines.
They did, but much more modest. For those three, the F2A filing date moved forward by exactly 1 month, from September 22, 2025 to October 22, 2025. Steady progress there.
Okay. How about F2B filing dates, unmarried adult children of green card holders?
Similar story, some significant moves here too. For all chargeability areas in the Philippines, it was like F2A, a steady 1 month advance. But for China, mainland-born, India, and Mexico, the F2B filing date jumped quite a bit more. It went from January 1st, 2017 to March 8th, 2017.
January 1st to March 8th. So over 2 months advance for filing for those specific groups in F2B.
Correct. Over 2 months. Again, reinforcing that strategy. Get the paperwork for the F2 categories, spouses and children of LPRs moving through the system.
And F3. Married sons and daughters of U.S. citizens. Did their filing date move?
It did. For all chargeability areas, F3 saw that same big jump we saw on F2A 5 months forward, from December 15, 2008 to May 15, 2009.
Another 5-month leap for filing. That's a lot of people suddenly being told, okay, send us your documents now.
It is. It generates a huge amount of work for the NVC, processing affidavits of support, civil documents, and so on.
Now, you mentioned F4 had the biggest final action move for Mexico. What about the F4 filing date for Mexico? Was that the most dramatic overall?
It absolutely was. This is probably the single biggest change across both bulletins. The F4 filing date for Mexico leaped forward by over a year.
Over a year.
Yes. In the October bulletin, it was December 15, 2006. In the November bulletin, it jumped to January 1st, 2008.
Wow. December 06 to January 08. That's 13 and a half months forward in one go, just for filing.
Astonishing, isn't it? And India also saw a decent jump in F4 filing, though not as dramatic. It moved forward 3 months, from August 1st, 2005 to November 1st, 2005.
So, looking at the family side overall, tiny steps on final action dates, but huge leaps on the filing dates, especially for F2A, F3, and Mexico F4.
That's the key takeaway. The contrast between Chart A and Chart B is stark. Chart A shows careful, measured allocation of the actual visas currently available. Chart B, the filing chart, shows the NVC looking much further ahead, maybe towards the end of FY 2026, anticipating much more visa availability then, and trying desperately to get the pipeline full of documentarily qualified applicants so no numbers go unused.
It's a strategy to maximize visa usage later in the year.
Exactly. Prevent waste. That seems to be the driving force behind those big filing date jumps.
Okay, let's shift gears completely now. We're moving from the family side to the employment-based categories, the EB preferences.
Right, EB1, EB2, EB3, and so on. And the immediate thing you notice, comparing EB to family between October and November 25 is, well, a whole lot less happened. Much more stability, or maybe stagnation is the better word.
Okay, so less action on the employment side compared to those big family filing jumps.
Right.
Let's start with Chart A again, final action dates for employment.
Right. And across the big categories, EB1 for priority workers, EB2 for advanced degrees or exceptional ability, and EB3 for skilled workers and professionals, the story is simple. Zero change.
Zero for all countries.
For all countries listed, including the ones we track closely like China and India, the final action dates in EB1, EB2, and EB3 were absolutely identical in the November bulletin compared to the October one. Complete stasis.
Huh. Why would that be? Especially at the start of a new fiscal year with 140,000 plus visas theoretically available. Why no movement at all?
There are usually a couple of factors at play early in the fiscal year, especially for India and China, where the backlogs are so deep. One, the State Department might still be finalizing the accounting of any spillover visas unused numbers from the previous fiscal year, FY 2025, particularly from the family categories. They need to know that final number before they can confidently allocate the full FY 2026 numbers. That often takes a month or two.
Okay, so they're waiting for the final count.
Right. And second, the rules governing EB visas are complex, with per-country limits and specific percentages that have to go to certain categories. They tend to be very cautious early on to avoid using up too much of the annual limit for any one country or category too quickly. Conservatism rules the day in October and November, typically.
Let's look at those stagnant dates then, just to see how bad the backlog is even with no movement. India and China, EB1.
EB1 India remained at February 15th, 2022. EB1 China stayed at December 22, 2022. So it's still relatively recent compared to other categories, but frozen.
And the really tough ones, EB2 and EB3 for India.
Yeah, this is where you see the real logjam. EB2 India final action date remains stuck at April 1st, 2013.
2013.
Yep. And EB3 India final action date is August 22, 2013. Absolutely no change from October. The new fiscal year supply hasn't touched these final action dates yet.
Just stuck in time. What about EB4, special immigrants?
Same story. EB4 final action stayed exactly at July 1st, 2020 for all countries. No movement.
And EB5, the investment category.
Here, there's a bit of a split. The new set-aside categories created by the EB5 Reform and Integrity Act, those for investments in rural areas, high unemployment areas, and infrastructure projects, those remained current, or C.
Current means no backlog, right? If you qualify and invest in one of those areas, you can get a visa number straight away.
Essentially, yes. C means visas are available for everyone eligible in that category right now. So that's the good news for investors targeting those specific types of projects.
But what about the main traditional EB5 category, the unreserved one, especially for China and India investors?
That one remained backlogged and static. China's unreserved EB5 final action date stayed at December 8, 2015. India stayed at February 1st, 2021. Again, zero change between October and November.
So the overall picture for EB final action is just hold steady, don't expect movement yet.
That's precisely the signal the State Department sent for November 2025. Caution, wait and see.
There's one more category listed under Employment SR, certain religious workers. Both bulletins listed as unavailable, right?
Yes, U for unavailable for final action dates in both October and November, and the bulletin explains why. This category's legal authorization has periodically expired and needed renewal by Congress, although a bill, H.R. 1968, did extend it back in March 2025. That extension only ran until midnight on September 30, 2025.
So the day before fiscal year 2026 started.
Exactly. Since the October and November bulletins cover FY 2026 and the law authorizing the category had expired, they have to list it as unavailable. The bulletin even explicitly states no final action can happen after September 29, 2025.
So unless Congress acts again to reauthorize it, that category is effectively closed for now.
Correct. It's dependent on legislative action. Hashtag tag 10.2.2 dates for filing employment applications. 5B comparison.
Okay, so EB final action dates were frozen. We saw huge jumps in the family filing dates, Chart B. Did the employment filing dates offer any similar optimism? Any big leaps forward there?
Nope. And this is where the contrast with the family side is just glaring. Just like the final action chart, the employment dates for filing chart showed virtually zero movement between October and November.
Zero movement on the filing dates, too, across the board.
Pretty much. EB1, EB2, EB3, the EW Other Workers category, EB4, and the unreserved EB5. All the filing dates listed in the November bulletin were identical to the ones in the October bulletin.
Wow, so not even letting people get their paperwork in earlier on the employment side.
Apparently not. It's a really telling decision. The NDC felt confident enough to open the floodgates for family filing, sometimes years ahead, but kept the door firmly shut on the employment side, even for just filing paperwork.
What does that suggest? Why the difference?
It suggests much less certainty about future visa number availability or allocation strategy on the employment side compared to the family side, at least at this very early stage of the fiscal year. They are unwilling to even invite the paperwork until they have a much clearer picture of the numbers, especially the spillover numbers.
Let's look at those stagnant filing dates for India again, just to illustrate. EB2 and EB3 filing.
Still grim. EB2 India filing date remains stuck at December 1st, 2013. And EB3 India filing is August 15th, 2014.
So people have been waiting since 2013 or 2014 just for permission to file their final paperwork in those categories. And no change at the start of the new fiscal year.
Exactly. It highlights the immense waiting periods and the current administrative caution or maybe paralysis affecting these skilled worker categories early in FY 2026.
Okay, let's pivot one more time. We need to talk about the Diversity Visa Lottery, the DV program. This year, we're looking at DV 2026 results starting to process.
Right. The DV program operates completely separately from the family and employment preferences. It has its own rules, its own allocation of visas,
and its own set of data points that tell us a lot about global interest in coming to the U.S. Hashtag tag 3.1 DV 2026 program limits and selection data.
First things first, the number of visas. People often hear 55,000 visas for the lottery, but that's not quite accurate anymore, is it?
No, it's less than that. There are deductions.
Correct. There are two main legislative adjustments we need to account for based on the notes in the bulletin. First, the Nicaraguan and Central American Relief Act, NACARA, permanently carves out 5,000 visas from the DV total each year. So that immediately brings it down to 50,000.
Okay, 5,000 off the top for NACARA.
Then there were amendments related to the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, for FY 2024. Section 5104 specifically impacts the allocation, further reducing the available number.
So after NACARA and the NDA impact, what's the actual working number of DV visas for the DV 2026 program?
The bulletin indicates the effective annual limit for DV 2026 is around 51,850 visas. Maybe slightly different depending on exact calculations, but significantly less than 55,000. Let's say roughly 52,000 for simplicity.
Okay, around 52,000 visas actually available. Now the demand side, how many people actually entered the lottery?
The numbers are always just staggering. For DV 2026, the total number of qualified entries received was 20,822,624.
Over 20 million entries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost 21 million applications for those roughly 52,000 slots. It just shows the incredible global demand.
So from those nearly 21 million entries, how many people were actually selected or registered? Because it's always more than the number of visas, right?
Much more. The total number of prospective applicants registered, this includes the main selectee and their eligible family members, like spouses and children, is 129,516.
Whoa, wait. 129,000 people registered for only about 52,000 visas. That's like 2.5 times the number of available spots. Why select so many?
It's all about predicting attrition. The State Department knows from decades of experience that a huge chunk of selected DV applicants won't actually complete the process and get a visa.
Why not?
All sorts of reasons. They might fail the background checks, they might not meet the educational or work experience requirements, they might not have the money for fees and travel, they might simply change their minds, or they might not submit documents on time.
So the State Department deliberately overselects by a huge margin.
By a factor of about 2.5 in this case, yes.
Just to make absolutely sure, they use up every single one of those precious 51,850 or so visa numbers before the fiscal year ends on September 30th, 2026.
Precisely. It's a calculated overbooking strategy to guarantee full utilization. But, as you can imagine, it puts immense pressure on those 129,000 selected individuals, knowing that statistically, almost 2/3 of them won't end up getting the visa they were initially selected for.
Yeah, that's got to be tough. Did the bulletin give any examples of which countries had high numbers of selectees?
It did list a few standouts for DV 2026 selections, which shows where a lot of the demand and competition is coming from. Russia had 5,510 selectees registered, Egypt 5,527, Ukraine 5,283, Sudan 5,226, and Afghanistan 4,200. High numbers from diverse regions, hashtag 3.2 DV cutoff date comparison, November versus December.
Okay, now let's look at the processing. The Visa Bulletin shows the rank cutoff number for interviews each month. If your assigned rank number is below the cutoff for your region, you might get scheduled. The November Bulletin shows the cutoffs being used for November interviews and also gives us the cutoffs that will be used for December interviews. How did those change?
For most regions, the pace looked pretty steady and controlled early in the fiscal year. The rank cutoffs for Asia at 10,000, Europe at 7,750, North America, which is just the Bahamas, at 20, Oceania at 1,100, and South America Caribbean at 1,850. All those numbers were exactly the same for November processing and for December processing.
So no advancement in the cutoffs for those entire regions between November and December.
Correct. Suggest a moderate, steady pace of interviews being scheduled. But there was one very notable exception.
Okay. Where was that?
Within the Africa region, the overall Africa cutoff stayed at 17,500 for both November and December. However, for applicants specifically from Algeria, the cutoff number took a massive jump forward for December interviews.
How big a jump?
For November processing, the Algeria cutoff was 14,500. For December processing, it leaped to 17,250.
14,500 to 17,250. That's an advance of 2,750 rank numbers in just 1 month, specifically for Algeria.
Exactly. A huge surge just for Algerian applicants.
What does that tell us? Why such a rapid advance for one country?
It's a clear sign of high utilization and efficient processing for Algerian DV cases. It means the U.S. Embassy or consulate handling those cases likely processed a large number of Algerians in October and November, or has them scheduled. To keep their interview slots full and make sure they use Algeria's share of the DV numbers effectively throughout the year, the State Department had to push the cutoff number way forward for December. It's like they're trying to quickly bring in the next large batch of eligible Algerians.
So it reflects successful processing at that specific post, leading to a faster advance for that country's applicants.
That's the most likely explanation, yes. An administrative surge to match processing capacity. Hashtag conclusion and takeaways. Okay, so wrapping this all up, comparing the October and November 2025 Visa Bulletins. It really paints a picture of like two different strategies happening at the start of fiscal year 2026.
Yeah, almost a split personality. Strategy 1 seemed to be about the family side, particularly filing dates.
Exactly. The family-sponsored dates for filing charts, Chart B, saw the really big news. Those 5-month jumps for F2A and F3 all chargeability, and that incredible leap of over a year for Mexico's F4 filing date. That signals, pretty clearly I think, that the NBC is confident the visa numbers will be there later in the fiscal year, and they're aggressively preparing the pipeline now, front-loading the work.
Okay. And strategy 2, that was the employment-based side.
Yeah, and that was the polar opposite. The employment-based category showed almost total stability, which in this context really means stagnation. Zero movement on final action dates for EB1, 2, and 3, especially for India and China, and critically, zero movement on the dates for filing chart for employment 2.
So extreme caution there. Waiting, maybe for spillover numbers to be confirmed, maybe for other policy reasons, before moving those cues forward at all.
That seems to be the case. Much more conservative approach on the EB side early in the year.
And finally, the diversity visa program takeaways.
The key things there were understanding the actual visa limit is closer to 52,000, not 55,000 due to things like NECRA. The massive number of entries, almost 21 million, and the huge overselection, nearly 130,000 people for 52,000 slots to ensure full usage. And then that specific big jump in the cutoff for Algeria for December, showing how processing realities on the ground can drive rapid advancement for specific groups.
Got it. And let's just hammer home that critical point one last time for everyone listening who's adjusting status.
Yes, please do.
You absolutely must check the USCIS website, www.uscis.gov, Visa Bulletin info, every single month. Do not just look at the Visa Bulletin itself. USCIS will tell you whether to use the final action dates chart or the dates for filing chart for your I-485 application that month. It can change. Don't get caught out.
Couldn't say it better myself. That check is non-negotiable. You know, this contrast between the aggressive family filing jumps and the complete freeze on the employment side, especially for skilled workers from India and China, it does raise a sort of broader question for you, the listener, to think about.
Yeah.
We see the government having to over-select DV applicants by almost 3-to-1 to use up that quota, partly because of legislative reductions. At the same time, they seem very hesitant to advance the high-skill EB categories early in the year. It makes you wonder, how much administrative flexibility or surge capacity is really left in the system? If family filing dates jump 5 months or a year, but skilled worker final action dates don't move at all, where are the pressures and bottlenecks really building up? It suggests a system under considerable strain, trying to balance competing demands with rigid numerical limits. Something to mull over.
That's a really potent final thought, the tension between different categories and the overall limits. A fascinating look at the mechanics behind these dates. Thank you. This was incredibly helpful for decoding those bulletins.
My pleasure. It's always interesting to see the first moves of the new fiscal year.
And thank you all for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.